Hey, welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. We're glad you're tuning into this episode. We are a viewer and listener supported podcast, so we really appreciate you listening, watching on YouTube. We really encourage you to subscribe to whatever platform you're using. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, or if you're on Apple or however you listen to a podcast, be sure and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. Also, make comments if you like it and share it if you like it. We really need people to make comments and share the episodes that you like. And then also, if you're not already a supporter, we really would encourage you to go to spiritualityadventures.com and you can pick a tier, and we have bonus content for every type of giver. This is a nonprofit, so they're tax-deductible donations, but we do provide bonus content for those who are supporters. So be a part of the team, help support Spirituality Adventures, and we're so glad you're tuning into this episode. All right. Hey, everybody. Good to see you again. We've got Roger Wolsey on. I've been trying to get Roger on for a couple of years. We finally connected, and I'm excited. Roger is a pastor, an author, a spiritual director, and I would say a spiritual explorer as well, like in an amazing way. And so his books all reference that. And yeah, thank you, Roger. Roger Wolsey, thank you for being on Spirituality Adventures.
It's an honor to be with you. I'm looking forward to this. We have been dancing around this for a while, and it's finally happening. Here we are.
And this is the book that came out in 2023, Discovering Fire, and this is what we're going to be focusing on our conversation for most of our time. But before we get to that, I like just to give a little of your own personal background, how, it's interesting because I came from the evangelical world and have moved into more of the progressive Christian world now. You've been in that space for most of your life, but give us just a little, because in the book, you actually go into, you give us a pretty thorough biography of some of your trauma. Like you just went boom, 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 boom in one of the chapters. But yeah, give our audience just a little feel for who you are and what brings you to this book, writing Discovering Fire, which is about all kinds of spiritual practices, not just spiritual practices that we find within the Christian community.
Right. Yeah, the subtitle is Spiritual Practices That Transform Lives. And the intention is to be a bridge between practices of organized religion that actually are life transforming and healthy, and practices within the spiritual but not religious, and maybe help each side lose some of the wariness or allergy they might have about the other and increase the appreciation that Spirit's really at work in all of this. That's the main goal. Get people comparing notes and talking, because wholeness is wholeness, wellness is wellness. Spirit knows Spirit when it sees it. So that's the intent. The backstory, in a way, the book picks up where Kissing Fish, Christianity for people who don't like Christianity, leaves off. That one had a second section within the book, the practices of love, in a very short kind of way. And this Discovering Fire really expands much further, goes deeper with that. That was more of an intro to progressive Christianity. And so I was in seminary 92 to 96 at the Iliff School of Theology in Denver. It's one of the 13 United Methodist seminaries, and one of the two most liberal or progressive. I was in that era where liberal Christianity was morphing, evolving into what is now called progressive Christianity. And so I was riding that wave. Del Brown was one of my professors. He was part of that in his own way. I was reading John Shelby Spong, Marcus Borg. And so these were the people that I was building on as this movement begins to emerge. I went to
by the way, I went on a bike ride in Ridgeway, Colorado with a guy named Doug Jones just last May, and he told me he's on the board, currently on the board of Iliff.
How about
he's a
that?
he's a banker in he owns a bunch of banks in Colorado, like a
Huh,
regional banker dude. Anyway, just I didn't know if you knew
interesting.
him or not. Yeah.
I don't, but that's small world. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And then I just remembered I remember reading that Marcus Borg was a mentor of yours.
Yeah,
I find that
definitely.
fascinating because
Yeah,
I was a big NT Wright fan coming from the evangelical, and I know NT Tom and Marcus were good friends, right?
yeah. I
I
mean,
think
so
so.
you're right. N.T. Wright, yeah, arguably was the beginning of the emerging church. I don't know that he would have said that, but I think a case could be made that he was part of opening the evangelical world into this broader minded, uh, reconsidering things perspective. I hadn't really thought about that, but he has to have been pivotal in that. Um,
Yeah.
Led the way before, Rob Bell and Doug Pagitt and certain others were doing their thing.
Hmm.
Uh, Wright was doing that. So basically, well, as I've described, the postmodern influenced evolution of evangelical Christianity was the emerging church or emergent Christianity, which now is part of what we call the progressive Christian umbrella. And the progressive Christianity is the postmodern evolution of liberal Christianity. So they're not the same thing. They are different. They are sort of like music has genres that come after one another. Um, and I don't know if progressive is the best word to use. I think a case could really be made that it's should be called conservative Christianity because it's conserving what is best about the way teachings and example of Jesus and lifting that up as the thing to conserve rather than this Christian nationalist gospel of wealth and prosperity idolatrous crap that has come to be considered mainstream Christianity. So
Yeah. So at did you grow up in a Methodist family?
yeah, both my parents were raised Methodist, and they met at the Wesley Foundation at KU Lawrence,
Oh,
Kansas.
hey,
And
go Jayhawks.
yeah, that's right, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Uh, and my sister and I were baptized in 1968, the year the United Methodist Church became the United Methodist Church with the merger with the Evangelical United Brethren. And so we were probably among the first kids baptized in that denomination. And it was like a downtown church, Gothic stone arches, stained glass windows, big pipe organ. Um, and I have shared before that it was kind of nominal, like they weren't pushing salvation, the Jesus prayer, that kind of thing. It was a low key approach. And maybe that's what worked because I didn't feel repelled from it. Um, but I was confirmed around 13. And then the next Sunday, I have told people that I thought, an atheist because I was, in a way, judgmentally looking at all these people dressed in their suits and dresses and spending all this money refurbishing stained glass windows and pipe organs and like, where's Jesus here? Well, this is just a show. And I had this judgy attitude. But then in time, I learned as this church has so many volunteers at the Dorothy Day Center feeding indigent people and teaching Hmong and Laotian immigrants English and getting them up and running as they start their new lives in the Twin Cities. I was like, oh, I just didn't know
Hmm.
that Jesus was showing up, and I was blind to it.
Hmm.
So I was kind of an a-churchist for a while, but then I during college came to some small group campus ministry that was low key compared to the evangelical one, which wasn't. Um, and oh, this spirituality thing, there's something to be said for shared spirituality, which is religion at its best. And doing it solo, it's hard to follow Jesus solo. It really does involve relationship. So whether it's two or three people or 100 or 1,000, there is something to be said for community and accountability and opportunities to serve. Of course, I'm also a critic of the church, so I get that side of it also. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so discovering fire, the title, fire is a metaphor, and you connect that to spirit. Give us just a little insight into that.
Yeah, so sure, just biblically, you've got the burning bush, you've got all kinds of references of flame and fire as being kind of like wedded to spirit, which is breath, pneuma, and this and fire and spirit work together. Wind, you need that to create heat. Um, and in a way, spiritual practices, at least as I use it in the book, are fires, and there's different fires to explore. You can do a lean-to, you can have a log cabin fire. They're all equally fires, but there's different ways to do it. Now, the title ultimately came from an essay by Teilhard de Chardin, who was like a proto-progressive Christian, born in the 1880s, did a lot of his research in the 40s, 50s, and a lot of his writings in the 60s. Um, Catholic priest and scientist. The Vatican censored him for some of his thoughts because he was questioning original sin and all sorts of things that you aren't supposed to question. Uh, but in one of his essays, he talks of there's this famous quote that I'm going to butcher, uh, but it's something along the lines of someday after humanity has gone to the stars and done this and done that, they will have gone into their soul, and then once again, man will have discovered fire.
Mm.
I'm butchering the quote, but essentially he's saying that if we do our inner work, it's not just out exploring the stars. That there's the inner work is a vast domain to explore, and that's where the heat is. That's where the fire is. Let's go there too.
Mm. Good, good. So, your first chapter, Diagnosis Death. Give us just a quick take because I want to start diving into some of these practices, especially the ones that are sort of outside the Christian tradition. But give us just a quick, since you wrote the book, we've seen I would say a continuing resurgence of Christian nationalism in America. We still have about 350,000 churches in America, give or take 20,000 or so. We're not quite sure, but 40,000 some Southern Baptists, but they're declining now. I don't know what 20,000 Catholic churches now. They're on decline. Churches are closing all the time. People are leaving the church still, it seems like, and yet there's this resurgence of this right wing form of Christianity that seems to want to take us back to a time where women can't vote and they need to be quiet and raise their families and all of that, which is so crazy in my brain right now. Even me as an evangelical never would have envisioned a president who weds himself so thoroughly with Christian nationalism. It just I found that unexpected. I'm talking about not since 2016, but I'm talking about prior to that as an evangelical. I wouldn't have imagined
Yeah,
this kind of America, honestly.
right.
What are your thoughts now as, we're what 8-9 months into a new Trump administration. Charlie Kirk's death just happened last week. Shot political violence. I didn't even listen to that guy, but find out that he was a voice on college campuses helping young people embrace this far right wing Christian nationalism agenda. Is so fascinating to see how much attention that has gotten.
Yeah, it's he did in fact play a role in Trump's victory in November 2024, particularly with young men. Uh, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and frankly, Charlie Kirk, the three biggest influencers online to get young men in their teens and 20s to shift in a Christian nationalist direction, basically appealing to their insecurities, to their lack of masculine identity that feels like they can grab onto it. And it really, I forget the quote, but it's easier to appeal to someone with their prejudices than through logic. And so that's what they did. He won the election by appealing to people's prejudices and bigotries, making them feel affirmed and stronger about being a straight white person in this country, to the lack of care about the well-being of the country or the planet. Uh, it's tragic. It is just tragic. Now, yes, the death of Charlie Kirk probably is leading to a little mini revival. Some more, particularly young men, going to church in the Christian nationalist variety. I don't know that it's really going to have much staying power, but it could. And unfortunately, that's the more that might happen, the more it's going to lead even more people that are more moderate Christians to, like, if that's what Christianity is becoming, I don't want anything to do with this. I can't call myself a Christian anymore. And it'll lead to even more moderate and liberal churches potentially closing. But that said, there is still a spread and a increase in progressive Christianity. There are more churches and denominations embracing it more overtly or just sort of quietly. But a lot of those churches are 100 members or less and average age 67 or so, or maybe more. So we are in a precarious circumstance. And ultimately, I guess this is where the rubber hits the road, and you either have faith or you don't. And is God at work in this story of Jesus or not? Is this life-giving or not? And is there a way to continue to tell the story and struggle with his teachings and invitations or not? Or has it become all too much and to reject all of it? I think there's enough love of Jesus and enough people who get the authentic Jesus, despite what some parts of the church are saying, that I don't think Jesus is ever going to die ultimately. Like the resurrection is, he's living on. His teachings still challenge us and inspire us, and people know the authentic Jesus and they know the crap version when the sniff test. It really are enough out there for people to know the difference. Can I predict what's going to happen? There'll probably be more mega churches and fewer small churches. But I'd like to think there'll be more potent, authentic, transparent, emboldened progressive churches that are less wishy-washy and more overt in their progressive approach. And hopefully they're allowed to continue and not be persecuted and
Yeah.
have to go underground like in China or something.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. I planted a vineyard church in 1990 in the Northland in Kansas City. Same year, Adam Hamilton planted a church in the south part of Kansas City. My church grew and became the largest church in the Northland. His is the largest church in Kansas City, and I think the largest United Methodist church in the country, probably.
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was always a little more progressive than me, but I wasn't far behind, and we've been friends for 30 some years. It's been interesting to, watch how Adam's continued to navigate all this. He would probably be comfortable. I've had him on a couple of times calling himself a progressive evangelical, which that's probably what, like when I was working on my PhD in the Hebrew Bible at Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, they called me a British evangelical, which I think was a way for them to say I was a progressive. But anyway, but it's been so fascinating then now to get into the progressive, I'm a disciple of Christ, full standing pastor now, gone to the General Assembly twice now. And at the national level, it's very progressive and beautiful. I love it. But at the local level, even disciples of Christ, which would be considered a mainline denomination, can still be very conservative in the rural areas. Like my church is open and affirming, but there's even across the disciples 3,000 churches, not all of them are open. Most of them aren't open and affirming. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Even though they would be more moderate, I think, about their stance, but in terms of actually leaning into that, and we have an alliance called the Q Alliance, which it's a weird name, but it's the Queer Alliance, I think, is what it is, and they take churches through a process of becoming open affirming, trying to help them educate them what that means and looks like and that kind of thing. So there's not a ton of the churches that have gone through that process, even out of the 3,000 churches in the disciple. So it's been interesting to me to see that even within mainline denominations, there's still a lot of what I'd call kind of conservatives that are in that world. The other thing I've noticed is that people who do a hard exit on the church from, say, like the evangelical versions of the church aren't necessarily looking for the better version of the church. They tend to check out. Maybe years down the road, they might come back and rethink it. But immediately, they're not just looking for a better version of the church, it seems like to me. A lot of the younger crowd that has left and exited sort of more conservative churches. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've certainly experienced a lot of that. Many young people I've interacted with, or people my own age, there's a certain I'm just done.
Mm.
Or it's sort of like someone who's been in enough bad relationships, or like they're just done dating. They're just done.
Yeah.
It's similar kind of
Yeah.
perspective. Now,
I'm done with this family deal, man.
yeah. And I've also met quite a few people that have had a season or two of that and then have come around.
Yes.
Um, and I can also think of some young adults when I was in campus ministry. There were maybe two really overtly LGBTQ welcoming, inclusive campus ministries of the about 15 campus ministries at CU Boulder. And the largest of those campus ministries really brought in the freshmen. They really like that was the place to go, this place. And the juniors and seniors that would show up new to the ministry I was part of would often say, yeah, we went to this other place, but we realized that this isn't the kind of Christianity we wanted, and we just learned about you, and this is really what we're looking for. So I've heard different people say different things. So yeah, there are some young people looking for a better version of the church. Was it Brian McLaren or Jim Wallace who said the best response to bad religion is better religion? And so there's some people who have that desire. And then there are others who are done, done, done. And then there are some who are done, but then eventually, for whatever reason, find their way back to a different kind of church. And it's always going to be that way, I think. There's always going to be those different populations. And I have great empathy and care for all of them.
Yeah.
And I don't think one's better than the other. If people are just done with organized religion or Christianity in specific, I have no need for them to convert to Christianity, become Methodist or something. Like that's not an agenda. It's like, okay, well, I honor right where you're at. Yeah.
So spiritual practices.
Mm.
Why are these important for us, whether we're in the church or outside the church? Why do we, as human beings, need spiritual practices?
Yeah. It'd be kind of like talking to a musician or an athlete. You can have some natural disposition as a musician or an artist or an athlete and create some cool stuff, sound pretty cool, and you pick up a horn or a piano occasionally or tap on a drum or compete in the local pickup basketball game, go running. I mean, you can have a certain degree of wherewithal, but in any of those endeavors, you're going to be much further along as the athlete, the artist, or the musician, the more you do it, the more you do it intentionally, the more you are open to learning about different schools, different perspectives. How did different artists do things? How did they do that? And why did they do that? And the more you learn about that, the more tools you have, the more creative, the further you can go in the artistry, the musicianship, the athleticism. So similarly, spiritually, we are just by our birthright spiritual beings. We're breathing in spirit. There is no not being a spiritual person from my perspective. It just is. And life is hard. There's trauma, there's wounding, there's alienation, we screw up. And you can sort of survive and eke out an existence, or you can thrive. And the thriving part doesn't usually happen by accident. It usually happens with intention, others bringing you on board, showing you some things, you gravitating to some things that are helpful. And so there's some collective wisdom, and there's no one right spirituality or right spiritual practice, but there are quite a few time honored things. We've got billions of people we share this planet with, that we can learn some things from each other. And so if there's a way to pray or to meditate or to be in nature or to uh, work with texts or work with even crystals or astrology or all kinds of things. If you can learn something from others who have done this a while, and then you actually practice some of these things, you're only going to go deeper and further than you would have without that. It just, hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of these can be practiced alone, but
Right.
many of them are also practiced with other people, right?
Yeah.
And so you have that dynamic of things that we can do to connect. I like to say spirituality is connection with self, others, and something greater. Just a real simple idea of belonging or connection or something like that with those elements of our human existence.
Sure.
So spirituality, and I love adventure. So anyway, that's why I named it this. But your chapter 2 dealt with some of the spiritual practices that have historically happened within the church. Of course, in my evangelical world, you prayed, you read the Bible, memorized the Bible, studied the Bible, you went to church, you tithed. I mean, there wasn't too much beyond it. Maybe some people fasted, but most different didn't. My Southern Baptist crowd didn't fast much. My Vineyard crowd kind of did. And then Vineyard had a little bit more robust practices in terms of inner healing. Different, they were, pushing in some areas that I think were healthy. But I noticed in your chapter 2, you mentioned a couple of things that weren't in my evangelicals, tool belt of spiritual practices. One would be the Enneagram, and another one would have been maybe a little bit on the dream work thing. Not. We didn't dive into that very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Those two were toward the end of that chapter. So I started out with some
mhm.
more uh, kind of commonly understood conventional Christian practices. And then I move as a segue towards the rest of the book is sort of this bridge stuff. Now, Enneagram, you can make a case that it comes out of organized religion in a way, a mystic form of Judaism, Kabbalah, uh, and there were some early formative people. Gurdjieff was I don't know if he was call himself Russian, but he was sort of a definite adventurer who
Mhm.
explored lots of things and pulled them together and worked with things. And it's become rather prominent in certain forms of Roman Catholicism and the mainline Protestant denominations. And I've even heard evangelicals using it to some extent. Uh, Basically, we're all created in the image of God, and we have different ways of navigating life and dispositions and perspectives that we come from. And that's good. It's part of the diversity of the Imago Dei. And so there's these 9 types, and there's blind spots to each type and superpowers and strengths of each type. And each type can go in stress in a bad way or in health in a different way to be at their best. And if you're in a relationship with somebody, the more you understand each other and where you're coming from, you won't have less conflict necessarily, but you'll navigate it perhaps better, a little bit more charitably. Like, oh yeah, you're a 6. There's a little bit more fear-based thing going on. I can give you some grace. I get your disposition. I'm the 7, the uh, more happy-go-lucky, sometimes surface level helium everything through the rose tinted glasses, and sometimes can miss depth and gravitas at times unless I do some work. And so I'm fun at parties, but sometimes can be superficial unless I'm at my best and doing my work. And everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. And if you understand each other, like, oh yeah, that's that voice, that's that perspective. I can welcome that. That doesn't mean that you let someone off with some bad behavior or something, but you can at least have more charitable, gracious presence about it, and more humility because you've got your own stuff. So it's a tool uh, that helps the people of God understand themselves and each other. It's not like the magic best thing, but it is a pretty useful thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I appreciated you doing a chapter for some of the traditional practices. Centering prayer is something, and contemplative prayer models that I've dove into. I did a 2-year training in mindful meditation with Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield,
Oh, yeah.
which was comes out of the Vipassana Buddhist tradition. I just completed that a few months ago, and I'm a certified mindful meditation teacher now,
Okay.
which kind of takes us out of the Christian stuff and jumps us into your third chapter. By the way, you mentioned about I didn't count, but 25 to 30 spiritual practices in this book. Have you done all of those yourself? Have you tried or experimented with
Uh,
all of the ones that you mentioned in your book?
well, it's been a while since I read the book. So,
You can't
certainly,
remember.
certainly most of them. I'm trying to think if there's any that I haven't done. Certainly most of them, yes. I'm trying to think if there's any that I didn't do. Uh,
So I want to ask you about a couple of them that I've never done. I've done a lot of these, but not. I don't know if I've even done half of them. I'm not sure. There's a lot of them that I'm curious about. Like I've never done the
Labyrinth, yeah.
labyrinth thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what circling is. I don't
Uh-huh.
know what curtain singing. Other than what I
Yeah.
read from you in your
Yeah,
book,
kirtan.
kirtan,
Uh-huh.
and circling, and the Halloween thing. Like all of those sounded like I've never done any of those.
Oh, the Halloween thing, was that like part of the shadow work?
Yes, I thought
Yeah.
that was a fascinating take on Halloween. Was
Uh-huh.
shadow work. I
Uh,
never even thought of that myself to connect Halloween with shadow work.
yeah, I
So
might be.
fascinating.
I don't. I think I might have possibly come up with that myself,
Yeah.
but Jung probably said something way before me. So I have no doubt. I'll be humble. Great people before me. But it just made sense to me that, oh, this is an opportunity for us to exercise our shadow side and own it a little bit. And so if I am critical of, say, Trump, and I am down on him for being a sexual playboy, a greedy, uncharitable, judgmental, I don't know, vindictive, well, could I, for an evening, dress in a way that is my inner asshole, and vent it in such a way that it's not uh, um, hurting anybody, but it vents it gets it out, and then I can uh, practice integrating that part of myself. So I'm less, because if you repress something, it's going to lead to a volcano eruption. And so the idea is to integrate your shadow and befriend it and not let it drive the bus so much, and have less difference between your public persona and then your more hidden self, and have more of an authentic true self that's more
Hmm.
consistent. And that's, so Halloween is just, it's a way to begin to play and practice some of that integration.
I actually love that because I really had to work on when I went through my meltdown, like my public and private. Oh my God, and it led me into such a dark place. Let Your Life Speak by Parker Palmer was one
Mm,
of, and Richard Rohr's Falling Upward were two
mm,
of the books that really started helping me to look at my shadow, my dark side, and actually not be so judgmental of it and suppress it, but listen to it and to
yeah.
integrate. Yeah. So that was power. I thought that was an interesting way to play with that a little bit. Good stuff. Tell me about somatic portaling.
That's a phrase that I came up with. The therapist that I was seeing in Colorado for a while, and I give her a little credit in an endnote. Uh, sort of teaching me this practice. Somatic, it means body, and the pendulum, or what did I call it? Portaling or pendulum? I forget. Portaling.
Portaling is how I wrote it down.
Yeah. So I'm enough of a conventional American straight male where my emotional bandwidth, my emotional fluency is not my strong suit. It's more of a second language. It's more I'm learning. Uh, that's something that maybe stereotypically women have more available more frequently. And so anger is socially acceptable for men to share, and maybe joy and laughter, but not much else. Grief, angst, depression, loss, fear, those things are kind of taboo or
Cry,
repressed.
crying.
Crying. Yeah, yeah, definitely crying. And so there's a technique where um, if I'm having a hard time feeling the feels about something, okay, so I can um, access it. So I can try just feeling it for a little bit, but if I'm feeling stuck, well, I can potentially shift to thinking about it using that more developed part, the cerebral developed part of at least me, and then maybe even think of an instance where this feeling has shown up, or different instances in my life where this has shown up, and then that gets me into a place of, oh yeah, and this what's going on, and it hurts, and I was wronged, and I was offended, I was misunderstood, and it hurts, and I'm scared, and I fear. What does that mean? I'm fearing relationship. I'm fearing abandonment. Like, and then I can maybe begin to shift back to the body and like, oh, where do I feel that? I'm feeling it in my heart, or feeling it in my gut. So there's a freaking tear showing up. What the hell? And then be with the body a little bit,
Mm.
and then if that becomes either wanes and peters out, or if it becomes a little too scary, well, I can go back to the head thing a bit, and then so it's a way to help. It's sort of like training wheels for becoming more into your feelings and
Mm.
comfortable staying with them. Yeah.
Cool, cool. What about circling?
Yeah, so circling is a particular form of authentic relating. It's a tool. There's authentic relating as sort of the umbrella. It's related to nonviolent communication, but it's a little different than that. It's more um, speaking your own truth. If I'm in Minnesota, the culture is Minnesota nice, and you might say, "Oh, well, that's interesting." But what you really mean is that's a stupid, crazy, dumbass idea, like you just said. You don't share what you really mean. You couch it in veiled civil ways that's kind of passive aggressive ultimately. And the idea is to drop passive aggressive and move to more authentic. Uh, um, Not that you need to be a jerk, but to own your truth. So if someone's let's bring it to something current, someone's grieving the loss of Charlie Kirk and inviting me to grieve with them. Yeah, I see you in your pain. I get that you lost a hero. I'm sorry, I can't grieve with you because the guy talks, he was against everything that I'm for, and the people that I care about, some of these oppressed persons, he was against and made things worse for them. And I don't frankly grieve him. So it's the ability to own that and not have fear and just be honest. That's the kind of thing that's healthy and needed. And it actually leads to more trust with the conservatives ultimately because, oh, Roger's speaking his truth. He's going to let me speak my truth. That's the thing where actual transformation can maybe happen in society. But if we're all kind of posturing and pigeonholing, then and being veiled, then we don't have inner transformation or social transformation. So what's needed for ourselves, it's what's needed for society is more people owning their actual experience, being able to talk about it, and then learning how other people are experiencing you. So circling, one of the things about it is you are speaking in the moment. You're not going into story. You're sharing what's true in the body. So as I hear you say that, I'm feeling a tension. I feel some tightness in my jaw. I feel a little discomfort in my gut right now. I'm feeling a dis-ease. And that's information for someone. Like if someone's sharing something and they might be oblivious their impact on somebody else, and maybe that's useful information for them to
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, think about how they're coming across, and vice versa. So it's a radical honesty, and there's a container that helps
Hmm.
facilitate this.
Interesting.
Um, and the idea is to, just like with yoga, the idea is what you do on the mat, you can take off the mat and begin to have that become part of your regular life a bit more.
Hmm. Yes. Good. Good. Interesting. All right. Well, chapter 4, woo to the who.
Mm.
I was trying to figure out what that chapter title was meaning. Tell me about it.
Well, so like there's a certain jargon, I guess maybe out of Black American culture, something to the something. Uh, it's a playful way of, usually it's done in an uplifting way. But here I'm overtly naming. Uh, so there's woo woo stuff that many people think of as esoteric, and beyond esoteric as just cotton candy magical thinking nuttiness, and they just dismiss it altogether. So they call it woo woo because it's easier than trying to learn about it is just to dismiss it. So woo to the who, I'm saying, okay, yeah, I'm honoring that this is woo woo to some people, but let's look at this. There might be
Okay.
something here.
Gotcha. The so one of the things I think you mentioned in that chapter is the tarot. You do astrology, reframing, oracles, but you mentioned tarot in that chapter, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I have one younger female Black friend who is really like she does her tarot readings periodically. And of course, I've never done that. I grew up evangelical to where I remember the first time I lit a yoga class into my vineyard church, I got a lot of kickback from doing yoga. You know what I mean? And I'm like going, God, it's good for you. Why? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I think God's for things that are good for you. You know what I mean? But anyway, but yeah, that whole evangelical world is like a lot of these things. They would have called them demonic, right? In the world that I grew up in, and so like tarot would be easily one of those things. What's fascinating, I've met a few people who are into it now. It almost, tell me if I'm off base, but it almost seems like it's a little bit like a Rorschach
Yes.
reading.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's
I
how
think
once I started listening to people about it, I thought, oh, interesting. That it's like
Yeah,
yeah, anyway.
it's like looking at the clouds, and what do you see, and what does that
Hmm.
mean? Why do you think you're seeing a a ship that's turning into a horse right now? Like what does that mean to you? Um,
How did
and
you see the face of Jesus in that Cheeto or what?
right, yeah. So I mean, humans are meaning making monkeys. That's what
Yes,
we are.
that's right.
Um,
That's right.
and we need meaning to actually be well. So if you have a dream, or if you have looking at a tarot card or an oracle card, there is something about the archetype. There's something about the what you see, what that either the artwork or the name of it. There's something that connects. Like, oh yeah, I'm having like this card represents, I don't know, chivalry, and I'm struggling with male identity and my manliness, and like what's the best way to show up in this world. And I'm seeing this chivalry in this image. Like, okay, well, what does that mean to me? Why am I drawn to that concept? What's going on in my life where there's an insecurity or a rising growth or strong suit showing up? Like, that conversation can be interesting, and that's just one hypothetical little example. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I found it once I kind of reframed that, versus how I was raised, um, it made it more intriguing to me. So
Absolutely.
interesting stuff. I really want to get into the plant stuff.
Yeah.
Um, it's so fascinating because so like I had a little time in my life, like 14 to 16, where I was, doing weed and experimenting with drugs before I gave my life to Jesus at a Southern Baptist youth camp and felt called to be a pastor. So then I stopped doing all that. And then now recently in my last 6 years, I've been a lot more open. I've honestly never, again, I was always for the legalization of marijuana. And I was like, let's not criminalize plants. It's like,
Mhm.
why the heck?
Right.
We're going to make plants illegal.
And especially if we're going to have alcohol be legal,
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
asinine, inconsistent to have marijuana be illegal because one is actually demonstrably more harmful to society
yes.
and the human body than the other. It's just
Yeah.
like not even close. Like so, frankly, I'm not sure if we're at the 50% situation. Maybe 50% of the states, maybe over 50% have medical marijuana, and probably just slightly over 50% now have recreational as
Yeah.
well. I think so.
Yeah. That's so funny. I went to rehab for in my whole downfall for Xanax alcohol addiction. Came out and helped a friend raise money for a medical marijuana company in the state of Missouri because that had right before I went to rehab, I voted to legalize it. And then I came out of rehab, lost my job, and helped raise some money for for one of the companies that got licenses that is one of the medical marijuana companies here in Kansas City. Um, but but apart from the weed thing, it's been fast. The first time I listened to Tim Ferriss did a podcast on ayahuasca. And Tim Ferriss is a podcaster. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not, but he anyway, that was years ago, and then I started hearing a bunch of research around mushrooms, psilocybin. I've done at least one interview with a gal that gets her mushrooms from Michael Pollan, and how
So,
to change your mind from that. And she does plant therapy with this with the mushrooms that she grows. And I did an interview with her. I have not. I took acid when I was in high school in the 70s, which isn't anything compared to what they're doing now with therapeutic plant. And then I know a bunch of PhD therapists who are doing legitimate research right now and like double blind placebo kind of scientific research around this. I was at Wild Goose a couple of years ago and heard Hunt Priest, who wrote the
yeah.
forward, and I've been trying to get Hunt on my podcast and he never responds to me. He's like you the first 2 years I reached out to you. I just never have heard back. So you need to connect me to Hunt anyway. But no, let's talk about this. Like what is there something like I'm tempted to jump into that and do some therapy around that because I've got plenty of shit that I need to deal with, right? So anyway, yeah,
Well, yeah, it is. Okay, well, what to share? All right, so
yeah.
the praying with plants chapter 6 is the longest chapter in Discovering Fire. It's also the longest chapter in Kissing Fish, and also the most controversial in each book.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 6 was my a progressive Christian understanding of salvation, which is arguing for a more Jewish understanding of salvation than the conventional evangelical Christian understanding of salvation. And in Discovering Fire, praying with plants, sacred plant medicine, in some quarters is controversial,
Mm-hmm.
trying to normalize ayahuasca and psilocybin in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Prior to that, there's a chapter, or at least a section of a chapter on nature and how nature and being in intentional communion with nature is, in fact, a spiritual practice in and of itself. And so, if you're doing any kind of nature practice, there's all kinds of possible ways that can help set favorable conditions to help you move on into praying with plants, which is the sacred plant medicine. Uh, Again, a person can live a full, beautiful spiritual life and never do any plant medicine. It doesn't, it's not necessary. But it also isn't something to reject or make illegal, in my opinion, either. There's many thousands of years of experience with humanity with these things. and it's silly to dismiss it. And there's a lot of wisdom in allowing it. Brazil, as I shared in the book, in the prison system, uses ayahuasca to help people break free from addictions to things like cocaine and heroin and the ugly, harsh stuff, alcohol. And so it's they aren't addictive. If anything, they are healthy. They are, if you are okay with medical marijuana and allow that marijuana can be medicinal, well, the same is true for psilocybin and ayahuasca. They have a way to help people psychologically, spiritually, in all kinds of ways. Studies have shown that it reduces uh, anxiety with people suffering from anxiety. It reduces PTSD symptoms. People that are dealing with pharmaceutical resistant forms of depression, high success rate with these medicines, psilocybin, ayahuasca, and even one experience with them can be profoundly helpful to people. One experience.
Mm.
Um, so, and studies have shown that people who reported being atheists before they experienced these sacred plant medicines notably reduced on saying that they're atheists after. So arguably it's a better evangelism tool than conventional evangelism. Like, oh my God, there really is a God. That can be part of this too.
I just had a guy visit my church and I had coffee with him, and he's that's exactly where he was, basically left the church atheist, but then had these experiences, and it's drawn him back. Like
There you go. And I did not know you were going to say that. It's just an organic, literally organic. I'm going to shift because I see my battery on my laptop is low. So I'm just going to move to where I have a cord. So just bear with me.
okay.
Um,
While you're moving, let me say another thing. I'm from the Vineyard. Vineyard started in the hippie movement, the hippie Jesus movement, right?
yeah, yeah.
Did you happen to see Jesus Revolution, the movie that was on that anyway?
I did see that, and I learned quite a bit of that I didn't know. And I understand that there's some critique of the movie.
Yeah, I could critique it myself, but the thing I want to say is that the main featured person there that looks like Jesus and was so influential in the beginning of Vineyard and Calvary Chapel is a guy named Lonnie Frisbee.
Yes.
Lonnie went on an acid trip in a canyon in California and saw Jesus, and that's how he converted to Christianity and then became the leader in this Jesus movement that influenced Calvary Chapel, Hope, and Vineyard, and all of these movements. And he was a closeted gay alcoholic as well. They didn't bring any of this out in the Jesus Revolution movie.
Right. Right.
And I'm like going, like, it's just like a cover up for the reality of what was actually going on. It was like
And that's
an evangelical whitewashed version.
exactly
I actually know the guy who wrote the thing. So anyway,
that was the critique I was going to make, and that's that you said it so well. They hid his homosexuality for the most part, and they totally hid the psychedelic uh, impetus for his conversion.
Yep, yep.
Uh,
Yeah. Anyway, so go on with you're citing some of the science behind this that we're learning about, and it's because it's been a Schedule One drug. It's been hard to research it, but for somehow they're breaking through that and doing legitimate research now. And of
yeah.
course, anyway, the thing that Priest Hunt was a part of was like 100 clergy people who had
Yeah.
never done any of it, and they were with John Hopkins, right? And that was like a real scientific research
Yep.
of 100 clergy, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff, huh?
Yeah, and of course he's now the director of Ligare, which is root similar to religion, religio. It's a binding together, uh, and it's a Christian psychedelic guild. And so
Mm-hmm.
the idea is to help normalize plant medicine, particularly among American clergy, to get them to not be allergic to it, to not consider it taboo. I mean, if you're going to be a clergy and you're going to be reaching out to 30 and 20 somethings and you aren't familiar with plant medicine, you're dumb. You are totally handicapping yourself.
Mm,
In the same way that progressive people, we ought to know about Charlie Kirk. We're dumb if we aren't aware of that sector and what's going on. We really need to be fluent in what's happening. And uh, if if churches can talk about this and can learn enough about it where they realize the value, the legitimacy, the frankly a tool towards salvation, which is wholeness, well-being,
yes.
well, then we don't need to be afraid of it or to poo-poo it or to judge it. We can say, oh yeah, okay, so this is part of your journey. We have some people in the church that have done this too, and we welcome you. Uh, and it doesn't have to be it's in a way it almost reminds me of rock and roll being introduced into Christianity,
Right.
electric guitars in the sanctuary. uh, well, it seems like it's such a big deal and it's the devil's music, and oh, it's just really good music, and it can be a way to lift people up, and you can still have preferences and
Yeah.
different styles of worship, and it doesn't have to be rejected. I'm not saying it needs to be part of worship,
Mhm.
but to be able to talk about it and welcome it and not be judgmental, that's if you're going to be doing evangelism well and meeting people where they are, we need to be informed and not frankly ignorant and judgmental based on ignorance.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, have you had an experience with this that you care to share or talk about?
Well, so in chapter 6 I actually describe in a way almost like a verbatim description moment by moment in some of the journeys that I had. I think three of the journeys I sort of uh, two ayahuasca ones and maybe one or two psilocybin journeys. I described the experience and what they meant to me and how they were transformative. Um, it's not a regular part of my journey. At most, a once a year thing at this point. Uh, but there was a couple of years where I did 4 ayahuasca journeys in 1 year and maybe 6 psilocybin journeys in that same time. And that was pretty darn transformative and eye-opening and heart expanding. Also, I should mention MDMA was part of that transformation of myself also, but I didn't include that in this chapter because it's more like in the way that LSD is a synthesized man-made thing. MDMA is that also. But I do think that there's value for MDMA to be on board as a healing modality, possibly spiritual, certainly heart opening. But let's bring it back to the chapters, plant medicine. Um, and you're asking my own experience. So with ayahuasca, pretty strong substance. On the first experience, I would say experienced divinity, my divinity, the divinity. It was a hallelujah kind of experience.
Mm,
The second journey with it was more experiencing my demons
mm,
and the dark side and the
mhm.
wretched, this kind of a wretchedness that's also within me and needing to metabolize and purge and integrate all sorts of different pieces of that. Um, and it was scary. And I'm glad I was in a container with facilitators and
Mhm.
knowing that each journey is going to be different and they all have a different medicine and a different um, it's sort of a sense of like the mother, the grandmother. It's often referred to as she or the mother, grandmother Aya, and she calls you. It's not something like you just choose to do it. There's a certain being called to experience it. Um, and in a way, it's one of these medicines that provides what you are needing. There's a word for that where it meets what you are actually needing on this day at this time. I forget the 4-syllable word for that kind of medicine. but it is that kind. And so frequently people often have a positive first experience with this, and then a second or third journey might be more the wretched dark side stuff that will show up. But then it can be all over the place,
Mm.
meeting a different wound, a different healing, a different layer of healing. Uh, all that said, ayahuasca is frankly hard to come by. It's not something you would do solo. You need to do a certain diet 7, 10 days in advance. It's not something you do on a lark, and it's expensive to
Mm.
participate in a retreat, more so than it frankly needs to be, in my opinion. Uh, Psilocybin, much more accessible.
Mhm.
People can easily grow it in their closet if they wanted to,
Right,
and
right.
uh,
I have friends
um,
that do that.
right, yeah. And so the elitism, cottage industry thing, and frankly the appropriation thing is less of an issue with psilocybin. It's more universal, more accessible, more, and frankly, it can be just as potent as the ayahuasca. Sometimes it's more light and happy, uh, but it can go deep too. And I've had deep journeys with the psilocybin, including dealing with some family wound, maybe even curse around a small portion of the family having owned human beings, having slaves in Virginia back in the 1800s. Um, and there was some powerful work that came out of that that was frankly necessary for me and maybe the whole family.
Hmm.
Uh, I would even go that so far as to say that sort of a family healing was part of what the experience was, but it was not a pleasant journey. It was challenging.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. When I was interviewing David Hayward, the Naked Pastor,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and he did one time. He did one of these journeys, I think, with mushrooms. I think, if I remember right, he had that experience where kind of the ego dissolves and you feel connected to everything, kind of
Mhm.
deal. That I've had a number of people who have had that experience, and of course, contemporarily right now, but also historically, as I've read a lot about this, that's seems to be one of the
And
common
I think that's
things.
part of the shared experience, and often it's people's first experience,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, and that's where it starts to peel away any, like, wait a minute, well, maybe there is a God, maybe there is divinity, maybe I'm part of it. I mean, that is profoundly helpful, and frankly, it is a spiritual experience. There's no way around it. It just is. Uh,
Hmm. Yeah, I have a friend who had a near death experience, which took away his fear of death because his dad had died at a young age, and I've had a few other people have that experience through mushrooms that took their fear of death away, even as well. It's
that's a
so
good
interesting.
that's a good point. I know in certain hospices where they're working with often elderly people, and sometimes they have a fear of death that shows up, and the psilocybin that they sometimes will be using reduces their fear of death.
Hmm.
And maybe it's just one dose, one experience, 2 months before they die, and those last 2 months, there's way less fear going on. Well, how beautiful is that?
Hmm.
Like, why wouldn't we welcome that?
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. Sam, my podcast producer, is a hospice chaplain. So, yeah, interesting. Well, we're about out of time. Your last chapter is on poetry and prose, and we don't have time to dive into that. But do you have? Is there a poem that you might like to close us with? Because you share a number of your poems in the book. Would you
Well,
like
I,
to?
I I
Would
don't
you like?
have I don't have the book handy right now. I should have it right handy.
I have
Um,
it right here.
oh, well, but maybe I could direct you to a poem. Well, okay. There's actually a poem in the Nature of Our Natures chapter, and it's called Earth Mama Gaia Goddess. Um, and while you're looking for that, I bet you I can find it online and read it.
Okay. I'd like for you to read it if we could. That would be good.
Okay, I found it.
Okay, cool.
So here we go. This is a poem that maybe weds all these things together. Earth Mama Gaia Goddess, in whom I live and move and have my being. You are Rechem, you are womb, my most intimate love. Let me know you hot, let me know you cold, let me know you young, let me know you old. Tell me the stories behind each of your laugh-lined spider webs, your delightfully sun-kissed riverbeds of wrinkles. Let me dip into your dancing brooks. Let me fjord your streams and press up your current. Let me know, really know your waters, not just to float along them when they lazily saunter and luxuriously meander, but so I can hold on for my very life when their rapids rage and the caps whiten in your violent storms. Let me sail across your lakes. Let me dive deep into your ocean. Let me know your tides, high and low. Let me know your moons, new sliver full. Let me climb your magnificent mountains. Let me gasp their thin air. Let me take comfort in your terra. Let me be strong in your firma, meant for me to vigorously leap and bound. Don't shelter me from your harsh weather. Let me rake and reel, fear and feel. Let me feel gratefully your yes. Let me feel firmly your no. Let my tongue tip taste your lava, let it taste your snow. Allow my hands to run through your fields. Let me feel the wheat, let my fingers slip through your tall grass. Let my toes get lost in your woods and forests. Let me trace my fingertips along your topographic temple. Let them circumnavigate your globe, sensing all your bumps and curves. Permit me to feel your moist and mossy stones. Let me dip into your hot spring. Let your warmth pour slips around. Let me spelunk and bring gentle light into your ambrosial caverns. Let me kiss deeply, probing your every nook and cranny. Let me savor your pungent subterranean garden abloom. Let me breathe in your aromatic and life-giving compost and decay. Let me walk upon your shores. Let me play in your jungles. Let me race across your salt. Let me protect you. Let me serve you. Let me cherish and revere you. You are my womb and my tomb, my beginning and my end. You beck and I call. Earth Mama, all in all.
Hey, I got chills.
So there's that one.
I like that. I
Yeah,
was just sitting in the hot springs out in Ridgeway, Colorado,
there you
just
go.
a few weeks ago, and I'm like, ooh, baby.
Uh-huh.
Very cool. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, you're
That was
welcome.
delightful. I really enjoyed. I love the fact that you're still exploring. Old men should keep on exploring. I think there's a poet that said something like that,
Amen.
like T.S. Eliot or somebody. I don't know. Yes. Well, God bless you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more about me, I guess the simplest way is to go to rogerwolsey.com and visit that website and explore what's there.
Kissing Fish and Discovering Fire, two books, but lots of other resources as well.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much. Say that one more time, the website.
rogerwolsey.com.
W O S
Oh,
L E Y. I'm sorry.
Wolsey.
Yeah, WOLSEY.
Yep.
Okay.
.com. Yep.
Yes. All right. Thanks so much, Roger. Greatly appreciate it.
So welcome. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. See you next time. Hey, you made it to the end. Thanks for listening all the way through on this episode. By the way, if you're not already a supporter, go to spiritualityadventures.com, sign up for one of our monthly supports, and you will receive our bonus content. You'll receive lots of interesting information about our guests. Many of our musicians will do special bonus songs and record a song. So I want to encourage you to do that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe. Be sure and share any of the episodes that you like. And be sure and make comments if you like them as well. This helps us get Spirituality Adventures out there to more listeners, more watchers. So whatever platform you're using, subscribe, like, share, make comments, and go to our website, sign up for our team, and be a part of the team support. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.